started with the few PowerPoint slides, and we'll get into the site. I'm sure everybody on the line is familiar with what Chem Responder is, but again, just to preview that really quick, it's a free tool for any user, any organization can join without any cost. And we describe it as a whole community system for the collection, management, and sharing of chemical incident and preparedness information. So this is a web-based tool. It's at chemresponder.net. And we also have mobile applications for Apple, Android, and Windows devices. The mobile application is designed more as a data collection tool for responders who are in the field collecting data. So the full functionality of Chem Responder is available on the website, which is designed for capabilities like event and organization management. So today we'll just be on the website end, which is where you can create and manage and view these lessons learned and the HAZMAT incident database. So just to be clear about that, these capabilities aren't available on the mobile application because, again, we keep that application kind of simplified for the sake of field teams who are using that for the data collection piece. So 3 primary objectives we've got for our time. By the end of this, I expect that you'll be able to, first of all, create, manage, and share lessons learned for your organization or multiple organizations that you're part of. You'll also be able to create, manage, and share these lessons learned in the event space. And then finally, you'll be able to use the HAZMAT incident database to search for events, sit reps, and lessons learned, and identify trends and patterns in response information. So a little context, first of all, about the lessons learned in the HAZMAT incident database. As we were developing the initial requirements for Chem Responder, we were obviously soliciting feedback from a lot of stakeholders in the community. One of those was Chemical Safety Board. And so they obviously do a lot of investigations, and they write comprehensive reports about incidents from around the country. And they gave us some feedback and said, we do these reports, and some folks will read them, but wouldn't it be great if we could give a capability to state and local users, to these agencies that could collect their own lessons learned and share those in this cloud-hosted environment so they can do kind of some of their own reporting on the response and training activities. So the idea for this was born out of that. It's not something that we've done in RAD Responder. So like Dante mentioned at the outset, it's a capability that's unique to Chem Responder right now. So this is the version 1 that you're seeing. We're excited to continually evolve this system. So let us know what feedback you have and features you'd like to see as we go forward. So first of all, who can create a lesson learned in your organization? So that's going to be right now any user in your organization can create and edit a lesson learned. So that's going to be anybody from an organization administrator down to maybe a first responder who's just got data collector privileges. They're not doing necessarily organization management activities, but they could still create a lesson learned here in the system. And again, they can edit all of the lessons learned that are in your organization. Any changes that are made to a particular lesson learned are captured in the action log, which you'll see today. But with any given lesson learned, again, there's an action log at the bottom that you can view to see kind of the history of edits that were made to that particular lesson learned. So to create a lesson learned, when I'm in Chem Responder, I need to make sure, first of all, you're in the organization space. So you'll see that in the top ribbon bar. I just want to make sure that my organization space is highlighted. That way I know that I'm in the right spot. And then on the side navigation, you'll see a lessons learned tab. And I can come here and view the different lessons learned that I've created in my organization's library. There's our lessons learned tab on the side nav. In the upper right corner, you're going to see that green Create Lesson Learned button. And so obviously we can click that and we can go in and create a lesson learned. So I'll just give a quick demonstration of this on this site. Let me flip out of my PowerPoint for a minute. Okay. So again, here I am on the site, and I've got this green Create Lesson Learned in the top right corner. Before it's going to let you fill out any of the other fields, you see these are grayed out, so I can't select my recorded date or my location. The first thing I need to do is select an organization before I can proceed. So I'm going to use my demo chem organization here. I can change this defaults to the current date and time, obviously, but I can, of course, change that. We had a response maybe earlier this week. So I'll indicate a location, a few ways to do that. I can choose from my map or enter an address or lat long. The fields that are required are going to be marked with this red asterisk. So that just means that I need to, for instance, give it a name and fill out an actual lesson learned, and some of these other categories do need to be filled in before I can save it. The rest of the categories and information here it's optional. So when we get into this, I don't have to add related events or related chemicals if I don't want to. But these top fields we'll just fill in quickly. This is my example lesson learned. I'll fill in some text. Here's my lesson learned. I can choose an incident type here. So, if it's not applying to any of these categories, obviously we've got an other category available. But, all kinds of things that I can select from. So maybe we had a fuel spill incident. Again, I should have clarified that this top date here is the recorded date. So when was I recording this lesson learned? This field down here is for when the actual incident occurred. So when did the response actually get carried out? So again, we can change that. A major theme in Chem Responder and everything we do is obviously a powerful feature is the ability to share any of the response information that I'm collecting. So that includes the sharing capability for these lessons learned. So I can choose to just only keep this within my organization, obviously, but I can also share it with my partners. So if I were to select the partners only sharing mode, my partners, any organization I have a standing partnership with, will be able to see this as well. The category here just indicates, was this an actual emergency response, an actual call that we made, or did it occur during just a training activity that we did, or during an exercise or drill. You get the idea here. So I need to collect, or I need to indicate a certain category. So we'll just pick this is a training activity we did. And so again, I have the option to add events, chemicals, or sit reps to this lesson learned. And then I can also include any attachments that I might want to add. So when we're talking about related events, we're talking about Chem Responder events that I've stood up. So if you're familiar with the system, you know that we can create events in Chem Responder for particular incidents or particular calls that we make. This is just a list of, we've got a lot of testing events on here. So I can pick a couple, the events. So maybe we created a couple of events for this response that this lesson learned applies to, and I'll add those to my lesson learned here. So this allows me to refer back to those specific events once I catalog, once I save this lesson learned. Of course, I can add certain chemicals. So we'll add. This is just a pick list, obviously, so I can add anything that I'd want to. So we're going to add ammonia, add hydrogen sulfide, and hydrogen cyanide just for fun. So I'm indicating chemicals that were identified on the event, similar to how the event pick list works here. I can choose certain sit reps that maybe we created in the course of the response here. So I can add a couple of those as well. I can add any type of attachment I'd want to. So that might include a PowerPoint. So maybe we've got, an after action report presentation we had. I'll include that. And then we had a picture here from the incident that we want to include as well. So if I wanted to include, Word documents, Excels, other photos and video, any of that is up for grabs. So you can put any type of attachment on there that you want. And then I'm good. So I'll save it. Just brings me to the details page, where I can look back at this, make sure it's all looking good. Well, we're going to obviously dive into the HAZMAT database in a moment, but you'll notice now that I have the option to hide any of my lessons learned from the HAZMAT incident database. So this makes a little more sense once you have the context for what that HAZMAT incident database is, but I just chose to hide it there. And now you notice that this box here says shared with HAZMAT incident database. It says no. said yes a moment ago. So I can easily toggle this. Now I want to throw it back in there for others to see in that HAZMAT incident database. So I'll throw it back in. All right. So that's how we can create lessons learned. Let me jump back over to my slides here and we'll keep rolling. When we create these lessons learned, we might accumulate a number of them over the course of time. So you want some ability to filter through them, sort them, that sort of thing, as you're, kind of carrying out some analysis and maybe some reporting. So on that lessons learned page that you saw a moment ago, you'll notice that you do have a filters bar. So if I click on my filters, it'll display all the different filter options that I've got. So you can see there are a robust set of options here where I can filter by, chemicals that were identified, by incident type, by organization. So again, going back to the fact that we can share lessons learned with one another across organizations. If I want to see lessons learned from just a particular partner, for example, I could filter by organization. You've got a little clear filters button across all the menus here where we do have filters, but good thing to be aware of that, if you want to go back to your standard settings, you can clear filters easily. Once you scroll down and actually look at the table, as I'll show you, you can also sort your table according to any of these columns. So if I click on that header, on the column header, then I can sort by that column. So if I clicked on accident occurred on, it would, go from showing the most recent lessons learned that we've got to showing the oldest at the top instead. So you've got some sorting, some filtering capabilities that can be useful for kind of making sense of some of this stuff. That magnifying glass to the left of the record there, to the left of the lesson learned, I can click on that to go to the detailed view of the lesson learned. So when I click that magnifying glass, it brings me back to this details page that you saw a second ago when I created that example lesson learned. And again, we talked about how we can choose to hide that from the HAZMAT incident database. Again, you can go back and obviously edit any of these. And so you'll be able to, I'm a part of my fire department's organization. Person A creates a lesson learned. Person B will be able to go back in and make changes to that lesson learned that person A created if they want to. But again, for the sake of kind of tracking the record here, any changes that are made to any lesson learned are captured in that action log that I pointed out at the outset at the bottom. So if I changed text, or if I added attachments, or if I changed the sharing mode, all of that is captured in that action log. So in addition to creating lessons learned at the organization level that we just looked at, I can also do this from a specific event. So again, I might create an event in Chem Responder for a specific response that we're carrying out. I might also just have like a standing event, if you will, for monitoring activities that we're doing over the course of time. Regardless, again, I can create these lessons learned at the event level as we're carrying out response actions. So now I just want to make sure that I'm in my event space. So before I was in the organization space, and again, I'm going to use that top ribbon bar to get to the event tab. And I'm going to be going to the details page. So using the side navigation to go down to details. And then obviously you'll notice again here, there's a create button, create lesson learned in the top of that details page where I can create a lesson learned at the event level. So I'm staying on the details page, and I'll show you this in a second on the site. And then I'm going to scroll down to the lessons learned section. It looks very similar to what you saw at the organizational level. I've got different lessons learned. The difference here now is that I'm looking at lessons learned just for this event. So I'm not seeing them for my entire organization, but I'm, again, just looking at them for this particular event. So again, I'm going to be able to toggle that list to choose to display it. And I've got, again, a create lesson learned button here as well. I want to create one down there. Okay, so I'll just show you that real fast. Oops, just so you have context. Going to flip back over to the site. So again, I'm in my organization here, and I'm going to flip over now to this event that I've got. My event is called Event Map Training. And I'm coming to my details on the side navigation. Again, notice my Create Lesson Learned button up here. I'll scroll down, and here I've got my lessons learned. So I've got just one lesson learned that I've created for this particular event. I can create as many as I'd want to. And again, any user, any participant, anybody who's on this event can create a lesson learned for it. Okay. So the details, if I go into this lesson learned, is the exact same as what we looked at a moment ago. Nothing's changed here. So I can, again, choose to hide it from the database if I want to. I can go back and change it or delete it, etc. Okay. So now we're going to jump over to the HAZMAT incident database. And so I'll show you how you can, again, using that top ribbon bar, navigate into the HAZMAT incident database. But I'm going to be in my resources tab now. So you notice that in the top ribbon, that resources tab is now what's highlighted. And I'll be able to navigate to the HAZMAT incident database from there. And I'm going to spend time in my advanced search options. So you've got kind of a quick query option here. If I just want to type in some text into that box to do a simple search, I can do so, as you'll see, but the advanced options are pretty slick. So we'll click on that Show Advanced, and when we do that, it's going to open up a whole lot of fields that we can use to search across the HAZMAT incident database. So in terms of, let me back up for a second. In terms of why, we created this HAZMAT incident database capability. Again, going back to when we were first collecting requirements for the system, we do a lot of work with New York Fire Department. And so they said, wouldn't it be cool if, like, they gave us an anecdote. They said, like, we were approached by our health department, or city's health department, one week. And they had some concerns about a particular area in the city. I think they had some like cancer clusters there. There were some public health issues. And so they asked us, how many calls have you made to these few blocks in the past year or 2 years? And the fire department didn't have an easy way to answer that quickly. So it would have involved, digging back through, obviously, some reports, and just not a kind of a fun process to be able to answer a question like that. So with Chem Responder, if we're logging our response information in here and it's going into a single database in Chem Responder, we can create a capability where it'd be really simple and quick to answer a question like that one. Again, how many calls did we make to this particular geography in the past year? What kind of chemicals were identified? What were the results of those calls, et cetera. So that's how this came about. Okay, let me jump over to the site again. Okay, so again, I'm using my top ribbon bar. I'm going to navigate now to resources. And in my resources library, I've got under my tools, the HAZMAT incident database. Also keep in mind that we've got a favoriting capability. So I've got this selected as a favorite, which means it also appears just on my little favorites bar over here on my side navigation. So something handy to know about as well. Go into my HAZMAT incident database. And again, I'm going to show my advanced search capabilities here. So I'm clicking Show Advanced. So let's say I'm interested in, I want to look at how many sit reps we've created in my neck of the woods over here in Northern Virginia, in Tyson's Corner. And I want to know, within 20 miles. So I'll use my proximity field here to enter 20 miles. How many sit reps do we have in a 20-mile proximity of this location that I've designated? I'll execute the search. And so now I see, the different sit reps that have been collected here. It'll show me you've got I'm showing 1 to 10 of 287 records. So it's quite a lot of sit reps that we've got obviously collected. and it's filtered from nearly 500 records that I've got, nearly the nearly 500 records that I've got, out of all of my sit reps. So I'm thinking, okay, I want to narrow that a little bit. I'm specifically interested in sit reps with hydrogen sulfide. So I'm going to enter that as an identified chemical. I'm going to execute the search again. And so now it's showing me just two of all of my records have hydrogen sulfide on them as an identified chemical. So now I know, okay, within that 20-mile, again, proximity, I've got two sit reps with hydrogen sulfide, so I can go in and view the details for these sit reps, look back at what response information was recorded there. So we're looking obviously to enhance this as we go forward, add bells and whistles, the ability to see the kind of sit rep icons on the map view, in addition to being able to view it from the list here. So that's something that we're looking at for an enhancement going forward. So let us know what other things you'd like to see on this, again, because we're always taking that into account as we prioritize our development. So just one more example. So I'm going to come up here to my clear filters to wipe all those search parameters that I entered. I'm going to put my events and lessons learned back on here. And now I'm interested in what one of my partners has been doing in Chem Responder lately. So now I'm going to enter one of my partner organizations. I'm going to search for across their events, lessons learned, and sit reps for the CBT training org, Rad and Chem. So let's just execute that search, and it's going to pull up all these different events that they're sharing with me. So again, back to that idea that, remember, your users are electing to put what they want to into the HAZMAT incident database, and they have control over, you have control over the partnerships that you create and some of the parameters for those partnerships. So this is all stuff that this organization has opted to share in the HAZMAT incident database and with me as their partner agency. So I can see their event information here, and again, see their sit reps. And I'm interested, okay, again, I'm specifically interested in carbon monoxide calls that they've made. So again, I can enter that as a chemical, an identified chemical, and look at the looks like two sit reps that they've recorded for carbon monoxide. And again, go in and view that event information. So again, in terms of kind of analyzing some trends and patterns and response information that you're seeing over time, we think that could have some application here. But also for thinking in terms of kind of the network more writ large, if we have a facility that is now taking in some new chemicals, that we've never worked with in a response setting, and we want to go to Chem Responder to, maybe I'm here in Virginia, but out in San Diego, there are some fire departments and health agencies that deal with this chemical all the time. And so maybe they've created some lessons learned in this database that I go in and I search for this chemical, and I can go in and look at the lessons learned that they've created and benefit from some of the knowledge that they've accumulated about how to contend with this chemical in response. So we think there could be some applications for that type of shared learning as well. All right, flip back to my slides here. So that's, again, some flavor for the lessons learned and HAZMAT incident database capabilities that we've got. Again, Chem Responder is an evolving system, and these are new, unique capabilities that we've developed for the tool. So we're always interested in your feedback, your comments. A couple ways you can do that. On that top ribbon bar, there's a contact tab. You can send us, questions, comments, feedback that way. Also reach out to us, support@chemresponder.net. That contact tab, those emails that you send to that address go to our whole program and development team. And so we'll get back to you very quickly. And again, we do take your feedback into account very seriously as we look to develop new features for the